back with the Barbell Benders podcast with Seth Todd and Altman Biggs. Today we have a very, very strong guest.
Very.
Who do we have, Altman?
We have Jesus.
Jesus Olivares. Jesus, how you doing today?
I'm doing fine on yourself, guys. What about y'all?
Yeah, man, we're making it.
We're trying to get as strong as you. That's what we're trying to do.
I think that's what everybody's doing. So for anybody that doesn't know, Jesus, you're 21, right?
I turned 22 this past June.
Okay, so 22 out of Texas.
Yes, sir.
Let's see. Number 1, Raw 120 plus junior in the U.S. Number 2, Raw 120 open. And number 3, all-time U.S. Raw total.
It's quite a resume right there.
Yeah. And that's only like half of it. Yeah, man. So we're just going to jump in, ask you some questions about your training, kind of get your origin story. Once we go ahead and start with that, how did you get started in powerlifting?
Okay, man. So in Texas, powerlifting is a pretty big sport. It's pretty. Football obviously reigns supreme over here, man. But powerlifting is like a pretty big off-season sport for a lot of the guys who are just trying to get strong. They're just trying to stay competitive while they're just going through off-season. So that was kind of my first taste of powerlifting. But back then I was doing football, track, and powerlifting. So powerlifting was the last sport of the year. So it was just it was for fun. I really wasn't too competitive in it. I think I still have because back then I was 264, so I still have I guess it'd be the 275 deadlift record at 660. But that was my first taste of powerlifting, and I honestly didn't think I was ever gonna be where I'm at now. Back then, my priorities were to go play college football, and then to go do track and field in the off season collegiately, which I did.
I'm guessing you threw shot put or discus?
Yes, sir. Yeah, I threw shot and disc, man. So I actually made it to state in powerlifting my junior year, but I ended up pulling out because I pulled my groin, and my focus was towards getting ready for spring ball. So I actually pulled my groin on my second squat, and then I was going to compete my senior year, but I had actually fractured my left wrist at the beginning of the season, and I needed surgery. So then, that was kind of out of the question. So then I could still throw with my right hand. So I just kind of ditched powerlifting, and I started focusing towards track. I ended up going to state and track for shot put, made it to regionals for discus, which is the meet right before, and I ended up bobbing out because I choked. And then I had 3 Division II offers to play college football.
Wow.
But I decided. What's up, man?
That's a lot.
Yeah, that's very impressive. You're just an athlete.
Oh no, man, it was all right, man. I was a lot smaller back then. In high school, I was around 5'10", 260, 270 at my heaviest. But obviously, for a Division I offensive lineman, you need to be more around 6'3". 300 plus, and I was well short of that. So then after I had to get surgery and I went to state for track, I kind of fell in love with track, and I viewed it as a less dangerous sport because it is, the chances of you getting hurt or breaking something, having a concussion, they just exponentially decrease, right? So then I looked at it and I was well, I feel like if I put my heart into this, I could make it all the way, to the Olympics and stuff. So then I had already signed my NLIA at this point to go play at Midwestern State University. They're a Division II out of Wichita Falls, Texas. They're consistently in the top 10 and whatnot. It was a very prestigious university to play for, but the risk wasn't worth it for me.
Yeah.
So then I went to go do track, and my first year, I did pretty good. The coach, he usually didn't take freshmen to go travel with him, but he saw that I had potential, so he would actually take me with the upperclassmen. I think my best, and I was a glider in high school, so then in college, he thought it was best if I learned to spin. So that's a big technique change, because when you go from the glide, that's just a linear explosive movement,
right?
To where when you do the spin, you need to focus on balance. It's a whole different thing, right?
Yeah, it's kind of like
So,
powerlifting. People kind of underestimate what all goes into it. It's the same way with throwing. There's a lot of little things that matter. I threw shot put for
oh,
like a year in middle school, and that's all I ever did. But I realized from that it's pretty technical.
oh
Yeah.
no, for sure, man. If you notice in high school, the best throwers have either been throwing since they were like, and even collegiately, because obviously, like the really good ones, like they'll go to like Kansas, like the really prestigious track and field schools, and it's like they know that like they've had a good coach or a decent coach since they started, and they understand like pretty much like you can have like those freaks, like those talented guys. I forgot this guy's last name, but I don't remember his first name. It's Victor. He's throwing for, or last time I saw, he was throwing for A&M. This guy was throwing over 200 feet by the time he was like, I think, a sophomore in high school. And like
Oh
he was just
God.
God-given talent, man. Like God-given talent, like long arms. Like he just had a good spin, right? But like, in my opinion, I think the biggest variable between athletes and like their performance would have to be coaches, because it's just such a technical movement, man. Like it's just like literally like technique is honestly 70% of the throw in both shot and disc, in my opinion. But yeah, so anyways, so I went to go through a track, right? And then I was doing okay. I think my best practice throw was around like 18.36 meters, and that kind of roughly translates over to 60 feet.
Mm.
In our, oh, I forget. I know the metric system is meters and kilograms. Well, I don't forget what the US. All these different like systems is kind of hard to catch up.
Yeah.
So yeah, so then, but like unfortunately, I ended up actually fracturing my fifth metatarsal on my right foot. First day of outdoor practice, like a week after indoor conference, and I had literally like went into surgery the next week, and that kind of sat me out for the rest of the outdoor season. And the way that the head coach at UTSA operates is like if you can't compete at conference and if you can't like bring points to the team, he kind of like he's kind of stingy with the scholarship money. So
Yeah.
like I couldn't compete, I couldn't earn my scholarship money, so then like that kind of forced me to move back home. And then a lot of my friends that I went to high school with, they were actually playing at the school in town for football. And when I told them they were coming back, like they were like, "Oh, like we told the head coaches and all this, like they kind of want you around the guys, like they think you can still be valuable, even though you're rehabbing, et cetera, et cetera." And then like me, like I'm a really competitive guy, man. Like I have to be doing something, and that'll kind of like tie in like how I got back into powerlifting. So then I did football for a year. I had a rehab during the fall, but I was ready to go during the spring. And then like I was like I'm really easy to buy into programs, man, because I understand that from a like football aspect. Uh, in my opinion, like team chemistry is probably the most important thing you need to be a championship caliber team. So, like for me, man, like in my opinion, like the way I looked at it is like the best thing I could do to help my team is to be all bought in, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Um, yeah. So then I went through spring, man. I was gonna start the fall. They had put me at guard and center. Like that's what I played guard in high school, but obviously I had to grow a little bit after high school. And at that point, I was like around 6 foot, 315, 320. So I had grown a little bit. And then, so I was playing guard. I was running with the second team, and then it was looking good. In my mind, I was playing, practicing to get a starting position, because that's just the way that I operate. It's like go big or go home.
Right.
So then, I think a week out before the spring game, I actually had I had a accident at my house where I bonked my head on my headboard, and I gave myself a concussion, and then my position coach thought that I was capping. He thought I was just fabricating this lie to kind of get out of practice and like slacking around. Which is totally that's not how I am. So like I took offense to that he thought that. But I mean, I was like, whatever. Like he could say what he want. Like I'm still gonna like do my get rest. Like keep up the schoolwork. And then so like, so I didn't practice for the rest, right? And then the rest of spring ball. And then I started realizing that, like, when I wasn't there, like, none of my teammates were reaching out to me. Nobody was like, hey, man, like, how are you doing? How are you holding up? And it kind of broke the illusion for me that, like, these people don't really care about you, man. Like, college football, like, sports in general, even, like, high school, it's like, it's a plug in, plug out system, you know? Like, as soon as you can't perform or as soon as you can't, like, you know, give them what they expect of you, they're just going to replace you or throw you to the side.
Yeah.
And at that, yeah, and that kind of like woke me up, man. I was like, man, like, I'm over here putting my health at risk for a program that's not investing back in me as much as I am in them. So then at that point, I kind of like realized, you know, like, I want to be able to play with my kids when I'm 30, 35, 40. You know, I don't want to like have to be sitting down all the time. I want to be active. I want to have a good lifestyle. So then I made the decision to walk away. And then at the same time, man, it's kind of like, y'all are gonna laugh at this, but it's kind of like the average gym bro story. How like 50% of us at least, like, we either go back to after we take a break from the gym, we start going back after a big heartbreak. And that's what started it for me, man. Like, I was going through a real tough breakup, and I decided to go back to the gym because it was just something that had always provided like a sense of peace for me,
Yeah.
and it was something to look forward to after work. You know, like, it kind of kept me busy. It kept my mind occupied, and it kept me like away from all those dark thoughts. So then I was initially gonna do bodybuilding because it's just what everyone does when you go back to the gym. You're just like, man, like, I wanna look good.
Yep.
I wanna impress people. So then that's kind of, I was doing like a gym bro split. And then, like, I was just thinking, and I was like, man, like, I've always kind of been a little strong. Like, I feel like I could be a
Just a
decent
little.
A
power
little, a
lifter.
little
Yeah, a
strong.
little strong.
Yeah, just a little. Well, yeah. So then I kind of like I started watching Strongman, and then I started like through Strongman, I kind of started watching powerlifting, and then it was just like, you know what, man, like, I could do this as a hobby. Like, I think I could be decent. Like, honestly, man, I didn't think I was gonna be hitting the numbers I'm hitting now. Back then, at least for another 2 3 years. But we'll get into that later. So then, I decided at the beginning of the year in 2019 that I was going to at least compete in one meet before the year ended. So then I had actually signed up for two meets that I wasn't able to go to because of either work or family related things. Um, but then I kind of started watching a little bit of Russ Wool. I'm sure y'all guys are familiar with
Yeah.
Yep.
Russell. And then in one of his videos, he mentioned Joey Flex, my coach, and I was like, "Who is this guy?" You know, because I was a pretty decent football player, but I wasn't as good before my coach, and the relationship that we formed and how he was able to draw out my potential and like kind of teach me things. So I take that aspect and I like kind of looked at it and I was like, you know what, man, like, I'm not really like experienced. I don't really know anything. Like, I want someone to be able to teach me and guide me to be the best that I can be. But like, for whatever reason, man, I've always had aspirations to be great. Like, I've ever since I was little, ever since I can remember, man. Like, I would just imagine myself being great at something. You know, obviously when I played football, I wanted to make it to the NFL. When I was doing track, I wanted to make it to the Olympics. So just naturally, when I started powerlifting, and I started noticing like, hey, like, I'm lifting as much as these guys, or I'm only like so many pounds away, like, it kind of just naturally came into my head, like, you know what? Like, I want to go to Worlds. I want to compete at Worlds. I want to compete with the best in the world. Like, that's just always been how I looked at myself. So then for me, it was really easy to reach out to Joey, and I emailed him. But before I did, I watched a bunch of his videos. I listened to the way he spoke, like his philosophy. I really did my research, man. I did my homework because I was like, you know what? If I'm going to invest in him, for him to invest in me, I need to make sure that our chemistry is going to be where it needs to be to go where I want to be. So then, like, we both watch anime. Like, we both make a lot of references. We were both ex-football players. And it was almost like we clicked instantly, man. So it was just, that was a really good thing for me, and that's kind of really when I started taking off, was because prior to working with Joey, I have never really actually done like a strict strength program because I've always been an athlete. Like everything I've always done was programmed around just being an athlete. You know, it wasn't programmed to be as strong as I possibly could be. So then, like, I feel that's kind of what I had a little bit of new beginnings in the beginning. Like, just my muscles were starting to kind of operate in a fashion where I was doing like sets of four, and I was actually getting like 5 minutes of rest between sets instead of like doing a set of eight and then having to run over here and do box jumps. So then I feel like that was a big difference, but like I don't know, man. Like that's kind of how I got started, and then we started working in October, and then we did my first meet in December in El Paso. I can't remember the name, but I went 8 for 9. I totaled 1989, I think.
Wow. Very impressive.
Yeah, and then at that point, that's kind of where I was like, you know what, man? Like that put me in the number 3 junior position in the
Wow,
world
after
at
your
that
first
time.
meet.
Yeah, man. And then that's kind of when I started really, really getting serious about it. Like that's kind of where I started really looking at myself in a different light. And then that's really when I started like amping up my goals and being a little bit more ambitious. So then, like my numbers and like literally, like I think by that point we had only done like 9 weeks, and the goal was literally only to hit the top singles I had hit in training and meet, right? In the meet. So then at that point I had like a 756 squat, a 485 bench, and an 800 deadlift which is pretty much what I hit. I hit a 749 squat, a 474 bench, and I missed my third deadlift on a technicality because I lost my balance. So we pretty much did what we wanted to do, and then I guess that kind of gives a decent overview of like my origin story, man. And the
Yeah,
rest
man.
is
The
kind of history.
the big thing is, I think it's super important for someone that wants to be, at the very top to have that drive. And it seems like you've had that drive no matter what the activity is. Like you always want to be the best, and that's super important for anybody that wants to get to the top. Is to be able to have that single motivation to go into the gym or wherever they train, and to just get better every day and be the very best at what you do.
He knows he has potential, like whatever he does. Like I thought it was very impressive with the track stuff. You were like, yeah, I could go to the Olympics. I was like, wow, that's a massive goal. You can see the bigger picture with everything.
And I'm sure when you had those goals, the people that you told, they some of them probably didn't think you were serious about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, a big one I would say is my family, because I mean, like, they always ask me questions like, oh, like, is there money involved? Like, is there prizes? Like, how many sponsors do you have? And it's like, to me, man, my main focus is winning. Like, I can be tagging all these people. I can be DMing SBD, A7, like all these companies, and like just flooding their DMs with like, hey man, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do that. Like, look at this squad, look at that. But like, really, man, like my only priority is doing everything I can to win. Within the morals that I have. So it's like that's literally like I'm really single-minded, man, and I get a lot of not trash, but I get chewed out a lot by my family because it's like, man, like if you have this drive, like with academics, with everything else, like you'd be set, man. Like I would have, like I was supposed to graduate like 2 years ago, but then like I kind of started slacking in school because of life and stuff, and I lost interest. And then like just several things, man. They're just like I'm a very single-minded person, and it's like once I have something in mind, I could literally like visualize everything I need to do to get there. And to me, man, when I prioritize something, I don't prioritize it to say like this is the most important thing, but it really helps me look at the bigger picture and be like, okay, if a hypothetical situation presents itself and I'm faced with a dilemma, I'm gonna go with what I'm passionate about, you know. So it's like for me, what a lot of people deem as sacrifices or like whatever, like to me, man, like I don't consider that at all. Like I love putting in the work, man. Like I love just knowing that I'm getting better, and it's like I spend a lot of time away from home because I go to work, man. I work 8 to 5 or 8 to 4 some days, and then I'm
Dang.
literally in the gym from like 5 till 8, 8 or like till 9.
Wow.
And it's like I've tried to kind of cut my sessions a little shorter just so that I can come home and like spend time with my mom and my siblings. But for me, man, like I understand that to get to somewhere, you have to pay the price. You know, like nothing's free. So it just depends on like how, like to me, man, when people ask me like how bad do you want it, like how are you so motivated, like those questions honestly rub me the wrong way because for me, man, personally, like it's just I don't ever question, like that's never been a question for me. When I do have something in mind or a goal, you know, so it's kind of like how can you not have a goal, how can you not be motivated? And I mean honestly that's kind of harsh of me, but that's just how I operate, you know. And it's just like I try to be more lenient and kind of like explain sometimes because like another thing that like I'm trying to do, man, like I understand that powerlifting is still relatively new. So like I'm trying to inspire like the kids in my neighborhood, like they're in high school right now, or like just people who look at me, you know, I'm like trying to be an example. And it's just like I kind of have to like realize and be like, okay, I can't be like an ass or anything. I can't be a butthole and be like, how can you not, you know? And I try to be like understanding, but for me, man, like, it's just like that's just how my mind works. It's just so single track, so single minded, and it's just I don't know, man.
Yeah, it shows how important powerlifting is to you.
Or just anything you set your mind to. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, that single mind, that single focus. Not a lot of people have that. And when you tell somebody like that, that doesn't have that single drive, they're like, why are you doing that? I'd rather just sit on the couch and just do nothing. That just seems more fun to me. But, like, when you have that drive, there's just something else there that it doesn't matter to you what else is in the way. You're going to get it no matter what. I love that, man. That's awesome.
Sure.
Yeah, so I wanted to ask you, after looking at open powerlifting, I noticed that throughout your high school meets, you only ever took openers. Like there's no other second or third attempts like throughout high school. Well, what's that about?
Okay, so I've actually looked at that too, man. It made me scratch my head because, like, I assure you, like, I did take second or third attempts, but I
Oh,
guess,
okay.
like, because THA, so the federation is Texas High School Powerlifting Association, and they're a different governing body. So I'm guessing they just kind of implemented like my final lifts on each lift. So I think that's just a lack of reporting on their behalf. But no,
Oh,
man, like
okay.
I didn't just take openers in high school.
Yeah, I was kind of confused.
Yeah,
I
he's
was
been talking
like,
about it all week. He's like, he only took his opener and he won every meet.
no, but it
No,
seems like you had some up and downs
Yeah.
throughout your competition career.
yeah, no, man. I've been so in the federation, man. You actually get disqualified if you drop a deadlift.
Really?
So yeah, so let's say you're 8 for 9, man, and you're pulling for the win, and you miss on grip, your whole meet's disqualified.
Oh, dude.
Wow.
Yeah, and like that actually happened to me once my sophomore year. But I mean, like there was some juniors and like there were some upperclassmen, man, because I made it to regionals 3 years in a row, freshman, sophomore, and junior year. And like so competing with older guys has always kind of been something that I've done. So that's why like when people ask me like, man, like you're the #1 junior, you're the number of this, like yeah, like that's cool. Like okay, like I don't think that's any less important because like I'll tell you like I'm in position to take potentially like take all 4 junior American records, and like that's cool and all, but I mean like I'm more worried, not worried, but I'm more focused on
The bigger picture,
um
everybody out
yeah,
there.
like eventually catching up to Ray. Like that's a very hefty goal, and like that we could talk about that later. But it's like that's kind of more where my eyes are at. Um,
And that's
because I
good.
mean,
You gotta have big goals.
Yeah, it's
yeah,
massive.
yeah, and I just want to make sure that like that's not misinterpreted because I do have some friends who are like in the junior and like that's what their short term goal is, and their long term goal is to like win the open. So it's like I don't want people to look at me and be like, oh, like you're talking down on other juniors, because that's not it. And like me and him have had conversations about it, but it's just for me, I just put more of an emphasis on long term than short term. But short term is just as important as long term.
Right. So speaking of short term, what are your some of your short term goals as far as like the next meet you compete in or peaking for the program you're in? You seem like you're getting pretty close to peaking.
Okay, so I've talked to Joey about this, and I'm thinking about potentially competing before the year ends, just because I kind of would want to get that 1,000 kilograms total before the year ends. I missed it this past meet in July on missing my ninth lift, and like it's kind of been on my head ever since, man. Like that moment for me was very, very bittersweet, with an emphasis on the bitter, because I was so close, like
Yeah,
so
only
close, man.
29 pounds away.
Yeah, like I was so close, man. And it honestly kind of robbed the moment for me in the moment. Um, but especially because I also did go 8 for 9 my previous meet, where I did miss my last deadlift for a very similar reason. So it's been like a very bittersweet thing for me. But I'm pretty positive saying that, like, or fairly sure that 1,000 kilograms is gonna fall on first deadlift if I go 6 for 6.
Would you
Yeah.
say that kind of fueled you for this meet, though? Kind of fueled you to say, all right, I'm going to fix it. I'm going to come in. I'm going to destroy this total.
Oh, absolutely, man. I like literally as soon as I went back to the hotel, I went on USAPL's website and I was like, okay, like what meet would be ideal? Like what meet's close to where I live? Like where? Like how much time do I need to? Like what I'm saying? Like as soon as I went home, I was talking to my brother and I was like, all right, man. Like I'm gonna get this before the year ends.
Yeah, you're already planning for that next goal.
Yeah, that's what a champion does right there.
Yeah, and it seems like from
Yeah.
what you've been posting on Instagram, you're either at or a decent bit over all of your meet PRs.
Yeah, man. So at that meet, my gym PRs were. So I was actually just 6 pounds away from my gym PR with my comp PR. Um, and then my bench was at that point, gym PR was 530, and then I hit 518 in comp. And then I missed 380, which I think translates over to 338 or something like that.
Mm.
So my all-time deadlift period, that was probably the one that had the most gap between at that time, was 857. And I wasn't gonna take 857 for a third, just because that was a risk. That was a risk, and I was trying to be as calculative as I could. So I just needed 15 kilograms to get 1,000. So that's what my jump was to my third. But everything. I'm fairly confident I could hit my gym PRs in a meet. Like everything's translated really well, and it's just kind of been on how I feel. A lot had to do with the fact that meet, I literally signed up 2 weeks before I competed because of Corona and everything going on, and my meet in April being canceled. So like literally tapered and deloaded in 2 weeks going into that meet. So we just kind of hit numbers that we were sure we were going to hit, instead of like trying to go for overall PRs.
Yeah, and sometimes that's the big thing is doing stuff that you're fairly sure you can get to build confidence and preserve your health, for the next meet.
Yeah, no, for sure, man.
That's super impressive. I love the mindset you have, dude. That's the part that I'm kind of in awe of. Now, you don't talk to that many people that have that mindset. There's that champion mindset that you know you're going to do something amazing in the end.
And are willing to put in the work to get there.
Yeah, exactly. Put in the hard work, man. Like, I know you work your ass off.
Yeah, like to me, man, when I look at the things I've done, like there are moments where I'm kind of like in awe of the weight I am lifting, because it's like, realistically speaking, man, like people die trying to lift what I'm lifting, and I'm not trying to take away or talk down on anybody, but that's just something I've seen. Like people literally switch over from tested to untested because they're chasing an 800-pound squat, they're chasing an 800-pound deadlift. They put on like 50 pounds. Like they go through all these things to do stuff that I just kind of grew into. And it's just like, so there are moments where I acknowledge like the opportunity that I have and just like the blessings and the gift. But in the same coin or the same side, I haven't done anything, man. Like I haven't done anything. I've only done 2 local meets. Yeah, you can say that I have the 3rd highest total all time in USAPL, but it's like I haven't won nationals yet. I haven't even won a junior nationals yet or a junior world. So it's like those are the things that count. You know, it's like when you're competing against other people of your caliber. So it's like yeah, man, like I'm on a good trajectory point, but I mean, until I get like my first championship or until I get like my first worlds or my first podium finish, you know, like nothing's ever guaranteed.
Right.
So it's like I acknowledge that like I know where I'm at. It's a pretty prestigious point to be, but at the same time, like I haven't accomplished anything, at least in my opinion, when I look at myself.
Right. But I think it's the potential that you have.
Yeah.
Because like I was looking at between you and Ray, so this is one thing I want to talk about as well. Between y'all's total, I forget what filters I had on it, but when Ray set a 24:36 total with a 10:52 squat, 5:18 bench, and 8:65 deadlift, he was 30 years old and 50 pounds heavier than you. And I think that's just amazing to say, to point back the potential that you have, that you're right up there, getting by Ray with as young as you are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, man, and yeah, I mean, I also acknowledge that part. Like I think the next youngest guy in the top 5 is 4 years older than me. I'm not sure if it's Trey Thomas or Derek Dowry, but I mean, I think Derek is an ex Division I football player. He played for Penn State. Trey is, I'm not too familiar with his backstory, but I mean, I think Trey has been competing the longest. I think he's competed for 3 or 4 years. Derek has literally only done, I think, like 3 more meets than I have. And I mean, obviously Ray has been like as dominant as he has since he started, and I think when he started, I think he was 26.
Wow.
So he's been competing for about 8 years now. He was also a Division I football player. I actually heard an interview with him and Johnny Candido recently, where he kind of goes in depth, like his origin story and et cetera, et cetera. And he was just talking about how he started and stuff like that. But in regards to my age, man, like I've always had to compete against older guys to kind of do what I wanted to do and be where I wanted to be. Like as a freshman, man, in the off-season program, like I was lifting weights with the juniors and the seniors. I was lining up as a 14-year-old against 17-year-olds. And then even going back to when I was playing college football, or when I was throwing, for example, like I was 18 years old and I was throwing against guys because there's a way where you can you're allowed 2 redshirt seasons. So theoretically, like a collegiate thrower, if he enters college at 18, he could still be competing by the time he's like 24, 25, if he knows how to like use his redshirt seasons properly. And sometimes a lot of throwers do that because they're trying to just get their like either they're staying to stay on scholarship for their graduate program, or they're just trying to continue throwing, or maybe they're chasing like a collegiate record or something. So ever since I can remember, man, like I've always competed against older guys. So it's like when I think about the age aspect of things, it's like it's cool and all, and I have more time than they do, and I've also been training at this shorter for a short amount of time compared to them. But it's like that's not where my mind's at. Like if I start making excuses and being like, oh, they beat me because they've been doing it. Like I see it like if I put too much of an emphasis on it, it could potentially become a crutch later on.
Right.
So it's like I'd rather not even pay any mind to it.
At the end of the day, it's you versus them
Yeah.
in the weight,
Yeah.
and just who can lift more.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, man, that's just intense.
It's- Oh, so I'm curious. What's like the first when you first went to the gym and you were like, okay, I'm gonna start lifting again. What was the first weight you kind of picked up or benched or whatever lift you did? I'm curious
It
on
was
that part.
squat. It was squat, man.
So like when you squatted, how much did you squat like right off the bat?
Like when I first initially squatted ever.
Yeah, let's start there and then when you said you had a little bit of a break too. Let's
Oh,
talk about
okay.
then too.
So yeah, so I've been technically lifting since I was 12, man. When I was in 7th grade. And then I originally could not even hit depth just because like that motion was so foreign to me
Hmm.
that like having weight on my back, like it just felt awkward. But I think my junior high coach did a good job of like making sure that we were low enough because I mean like football coaches aren't the most knowledgeable, especially in junior high. They're not the most knowledgeable in like physiology and like how the human body works necessarily.
100% agree.
So yeah, so the way that I was taught was to go ass to grass, and pretty much the way they made sure we did that was our reps wouldn't count if our butt wasn't touching a dumbbell. So we would have like 25, no, like I think they were like 55 pounds. They were like 55-pound metal dumbbells, so that's probably about maybe like 18 inches off the ground, or maybe shorter than that. So literally, if our butt wasn't touching the dumbbell every rep, it wouldn't count. So that's kind of how I started into squatting.
So you were held
And
to a
then,
high standard of squatting from the beginning.
yeah, and I've actually had a couple of DMs asking me like, man, like you high bar and you squat in class, like how do you hit depth? And it's like, like I wish I could tell you, but I've just been squatting below parallel since I can remember. So like when I have to cut depth a little bit to get like a little bit of a boost or like just to be able to be in a better position, like I already know I'm hitting depth when I know I'm cutting it short. So then from that off season, I went from not having the mobility to squat to I think squatting like 300 pounds.
Wait, this is when you were 12 though, right?
Yes, this is when I was
Still
12.
in middle school.
Yeah, in middle school.
Yes.
Wow.
And then like literally in high school, man, up until I was a sophomore, because my position coach kind of put a cap on how much I could squat because he didn't want me like risking hurt. So literally up until I was like 9th grade, sophomore year, like I would literally jump like 90 pounds. So when I was a 7th grader, I squatted around like 300, 315. And then when I was 13 in 8th grade, that's when I squatted my first 4-plate squat. And then
13.
when I went, yeah, but I mean, like, there's other phenoms, or I'm not gonna call myself a phenom, but there's other 14-year-olds that I've seen squat 405. So it's like, okay, it's not that special. And then and then when I was 14 in 9th grade, that's when I squatted my first 5-plate squat. And then when I was a sophomore, that's when I squatted 455. That's when and then literally like my junior year, that's as high as my coach let me squat. So I kind of hit like the same, but I'm pretty sure I could have gone up. And then when I took a break after quitting football and then going through the whole heartbreak thing, and I went back, like I really I didn't know where my max was, but I kind of knew that I could like do 495 comfortably. So that's kind of what I would hit for top sets. I would just go to like 5 plates and I would do like 4 or 5 reps. And then I would do more high rep for like my accessories and stuff. And then when I started putting more of an emphasis on strength training, that's kind of when I started doing like 3x3s. That's kind of when I started recording myself, and like I did research on like what RPE was and like what RIR is. And that's when I kind of started slowly pushing my boundary. And then my first real max out, I squatted 675 at 20 years old, I think. It was 675, and then like the next day, I also deadlifted 675, and this was like I think 3 months before I turned 21.
Wow.
Yeah. So then, but I would say squat was the first lift that I kind of touched when I came back. Because I mean, being a football player, man, like we don't really talk about deadlifts. Deadlifts are like taboo because, like, obviously, like you don't want to hurt your back, you don't want to break your back pulling. But I've honestly learned like a lot about deadlifting because whenever I first squatted that first 405, man, like my back popped, and like ever since then, I've kind of had like chronic back pain.
Mhm.
Like I'm pretty sure it's because like my body wasn't mature enough to handle the stress, but my muscles were.
Yeah.
So then ever since then, man, like I would have like chronic back pain. So then like I would just kind of like manage and like just work through it like as I went through high school. So when I first started powerlifting, I was like, man, like I need a deadlift. Like it's a part of the competition. Like I can't miss it. So I just need to start slowly getting into it. So I was scared to deadlift, honestly, man. And it's like I would never go over 600 pounds. Like 600 pounds was like my cap. That's where I was okay at mentally, like handling. And then when I started getting more comfortable, like that's kind of when I was like, you know what, man? Like I think I can do a 7 plate deadlift. And then I loaded it, man, and it moved. I mean, it was slow. It was slow at first, but I mean, like I locked it out. It was smooth. It was to competition standards, and that was. I mean, we've come. I've come a ways from then, man. It's crazy to
Yeah.
think, but been away. It's been away.
And you're a flex athlete, so and I imagine this is all pretty important to you. But how important is it to you nutrition, eating, sleeping, and stress management for your training?
So that has always been important for me, even before I started working with Joey. And like we've talked about this. He's like, honestly, man, like working with guys like you is like so God sent because it's like all I have to worry about is sending you your program, and like you could pretty much handle 99% of the rest, right? So I've always understood. I've had like a really basic understanding of like how nutrition works, like hydrating, making sure that I'm getting at least like 6 to 7 hours, like at a minimum, and like resting and like yoga, stretching, taking days off, skipping a workout if I need to. Like that has always been my mentality because like I've had surgeries to kind of reinforce that because and injuries too. Like whenever I first started, like part of the reason why I was so scared of deadlifting and like my chronic back pain is like I don't know exactly what I did. I didn't go to the chiropractor or the doctor, but I aggravated my sciatic nerve, so I couldn't squat or deadlift for 3 months.
Yeah,
So I literally, yeah, man. So that's kind of like I've had experiences where I've had to like literally YouTube and ask friends and mean like, what can I do to like fix this? Because I don't have like the money or the means to go get checked out and go through rehab and stuff. So I kind of was like, I had to fix it myself. So like I don't know, man. Like to me, like I've always just been, but I mean, it's extremely important to answer your question. But like even before I started working with Joey, man, like I had a pretty good understanding of just the importance and like how much it can affect you, like in training or in comp, if you don't have enough sleep, if you're dehydrated, or if you're like running on no food.
yeah, it's the little things that make the big differences,
Especially in the long run.
powerlifting. Yeah, in the long run.
Like what you're talking about if you want that big picture, you have to do these little things in order to get that big picture.
Yeah, man. Like I have a saying, man. Like I'm pretty sure I can't say the title of the song, so like don't make fun of me. But it goes, it's like we're here for a fun time, not a long time.
Yeah,
And like that has always kind of like struck me the wrong way. And I
Thank you.
kind of I reworded it. I reworded it to where what I say is I'm trying to be here for a long time, not a fun time, you know?
yeah, there you
And
go.
like, and I say that because I mean, most people don't think that taking the extra precaution to drink more water, to get more food, to get more sleep, they don't think that's fun. Like, I'm not, and I'm not to like talk down on those people, you know, who are like putting more time towards like living the party life or like people who like to have more fun,
Yeah,
but
to
that's
to
just
each his
not
own.
something that
Yeah,
I've
do
been
your thing.
interested in. Yeah, yeah, to each their own. So it's like where people like to go drink and party and stuff like that, I like to
Lift.
like stay at home and lift and drink
Stretch.
water or meal prep. That's where I find like my fun at.
Yeah, like you were saying about injuries, my football coach kind of screwed me over. I've gotten hurt 3 times from deadlifting. Twice of them were in high school.
Jeez.
The second time was my sciatica, just like you had, and it man. Lower back problems are just awful. I don't wish them upon anybody.
Oh no, for sure, man.
Well,
Most definitely not.
after like you've had these problems, what have been some solutions that you have found to kind of fix it or to tame it?
Let me see if I can. I can't quote anybody off the top of my head, but or I think somebody posted this on their story one time, and I saw it, and it's like rehab. The bit like a good philosophy to have for rehab is being able to do as much work as you can pain free.
Yeah.
So, like what I was doing with my sciatic issues is I was doing a lot of like glute bridges. I was my primary focus was strengthening like the muscles around the area where it hurt. That was
Okay.
kind of the approach that I kind of like the conclusion that I arrived to that the best way to kind of get rid of pain is to pretty much like strengthen the areas around it because it's like when something's like hurting or it's stressed out, it's not working the way it's supposed to. So like the muscles around it kind of have to like what's the word? Like,
Compensate.
they just have to do more. Yeah, they have to compensate.
Yeah, that's
So
exactly what I needed
yeah.
to hear because I got hurt right before quarantine deadlifting. I was like a month out from nationals, getting ready to peak. I pulled sumo, so I locked out my knees too quick and too much pressure on my lower back. Well, it transferred from my lower back down to my glute. After going to the doctor a couple times and a physical therapist, they're calling it gluteal tendonitis, and it's gotten a lot better. I can lift and squat and deadlift just fine, but it's the times when I'm sitting down or laying down or in a vehicle where it hurts, where I'm just stagnant.
Mhm.
And the physical therapist told me, she's like, I know you don't want to hear this, but you have weak glutes and
Yeah, well,
you have
most
weak
lifters
hips.
do.
Yeah,
Most lifters don't know how to turn their glutes on. It's and kind of how you kind of have to twist your feet in or grab the floor a little bit, kind of turn them on. Use the glute bridges like you said, and find different ways to use them. And I like what you said about using the musculature around where you're trying to fix. Dr. Stuart McGill, the McGill Big Three, the bird dog, a little bit of a crunch up, so to say, and then he's just focused on really how to stabilize the spine. And that's what it seems like you've been doing.
Yeah, like pretty much like all those core muscles.
Exactly.
yeah. So it sounds like I need to start doing some more glute bridges.
Yep. If you want to squat as much as him, absolutely. You
I
hear that, folks?
I don't know that I'll ever squat
Another
that much.
another good one, man. That I think it's extremely underrated for like power lifters. I would say is like those adductor machines at the commercial gyms, where you can kind of like work your groin and then like work your I don't know if it's your abductors or adduction, but like the muscles on the outside.
Mm,
I think like if you kind of add a little bit of an emphasis on your glutes when you're working that, I think that honestly like helps keep your it helps like strengthen like your hip area.
Yes.
So I mean that's if I would give any advice for anybody to kind of help with like a hip shift without doing any like pause squats or rack squats, like I would say start doing some adduction machine accessories.
yeah, so you heard it. You heard it first here, folks.
Yeah.
Strengthen the hips and the glutes.
Get on that machine.
So since you've been training seriously in say 2019, has injury mitigation been going well for you? Have you gotten hurt, minor or major?
Um, Nothing major, man, because and it's like I've had not arguments, but I've had conversations with this with Joey, and it's like I feel like confidence is probably 50 belief that you can like belief in yourself is 50% of the action itself. So it's like if I'm feeling any bit of doubt or any little like insecurity or I'm like, wait a minute, like this doesn't feel right, I will just like stop what I'm doing and I'll either go do my accessories or I'll go stretch or I'll go home and ice.
Yeah.
So like I can tell you that there's probably been in the last 10 months there has been around like 7 workouts that I have had to cut short for either like something's feeling weird, something's feeling off, something that just doesn't feel right, and like I don't feel confident enough to load the weight that I need to, or like let's say I've already done 2 sets and I have 2 sets left, but on the last rep, like I tweak my quad, like I'll call it there. I'm
Yeah.
not gonna like force anything. I'm not going to like be a meathead, and like just try to muscle it up. Because I mean, like as much as I believe in doing the work, I feel like the unspoken part, like rehab, like taking care of yourself, like
Hmm.
that's just as important as like actually doing your sets, doing your volume, making sure you're hitting the right RPE, hitting like enough sleep, enough water. Like it all comes together. And at the end of the day, man, like you literally get in what you put out, or you put out what you put in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
And
worded it wrongly, but like that's kind of like what my philosophy is, man. So it's like if I'm being a meathead because I have to finish my workout, but I know better, like at that point, if I have to rehab and sit out for half a year, that's my fault.
yeah.
And like how I said with my sciatica, like I wasn't able to do anything for 3 months. During those 3 months, man, I was like, man, like I knew better. I shouldn't have deadlifted. I should have just like stuck to bodybuilding. I should have just been a gym bro. And like that almost derailed what has happened. So like I understand like you gotta take care of yourself first, man. Like if you're not fit to do something, or if you don't think you're able to do something that you probably shouldn't. But on the other hand, man, like if you know like you can, like go ahead and push through.
Yeah, it takes a long time in the gym to be able to learn your body and learn to listen to it and to know whether your body is saying, "Hey, I'm not comfortable with this. I don't think we should do this." And between the difference in, I'm tired and I don't want to do this.
Yeah.
There's a big difference in that, and I think it takes,
Experience. And
experience.
just someone with a sound mind. Like it sounds.
Oh, yeah.
I'm gonna ask you, how often do you get amped up for lifts? Like you see these guys in the gym, they go crazy. They're like, "Oh, I got to get this lift in." They amp themselves up. How often do you do that, if at all?
Not really, man. I'm a real calm lifter. And like there have been times where I get excited and I'm like I get a little nervous, but I don't get to the point where I'm like kind of grunting or shouting. And it's like sometimes I wish I could because I do know that there's studies proven like when you can kind of release a little bit more adrenaline and you can kind of like because of like you can just make yourself angry at will, or if you can like just bring up a memory or something, like there's like studies showing that you can actually increase your strength output. But I mean, like I just feel like I can't, man. Like I've tried, like I've asked some of my buddies, like I'm sure y'all are real, like do y'all know who Isaac Whistler is?
Yeah.
I don't think so.
No, okay, well he's one of my teammates and a good buddy of mine, and it's like he's a real hype lifter, man. Like this guy just has so much energy that it's like, man, like I can't wait till we train together someday because like I can feed off of that.
Hmm.
But when I'm by myself, I'm really calm. I'm really just kind of like I kind of try to be in a mental state where I'm like really focused, but at the same time, like I can literally feel the bar path. I can feel the timing of like my leverages. I can feel how my leg, like what I'm saying. It's like I
You're
try to
extremely tuned into your body.
Yeah.
yes, and it's like I wish that sometimes I could get hyped up because maybe I could add like 15, 20 pounds to my singles and stuff. But in reality, it's like that's not how I am, and I've kind of come to peace with that. But no, man, like I'm not what you would consider a hype lifter. Like not in the slightest.
Yeah, everybody's different. Not everybody needs that, and I think sometimes it's not healthy to do that every time because that getting that adrenaline up every workout you're going to crash eventually.
Yeah, some athletes are just good in that zone, like you're talking about. And then some athletes are better with like your friend that you just talked about. He's just better in that hype zone. It really, like you said, just depends on the person.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, like he really, and I've had conversations with him, and I've asked him why, because like I'm very curious about it, and like he told me that it's like a confidence thing for him, that it helps him put himself in a mental position where his confidence is there to perform the lift. So after he explained it to me how he uses it, it was like, you know what, bro, like I have a similar thought process, but I mean, I just don't start yelling, or I don't start like just getting in a rhythm or anything. But like I myself have a process where I'm like, I kind of analyze, I visualize the lift. I'm like, okay, like my hips need to feel like this in the hole. Like my belt feels like super tight when I know I need to come up where I've hit depth. So it's like everyone has their own methods and their own madness and how they operate. It just depends on the perspective and the lifter to that particular environment and how they operate.
Yeah, it's internal for you.
Yeah, I would agree with that, man. It's very internal.
Yeah. Do you have anything else you want to add?
Uh, I don't know, man. Like, I'm not. I mean, I don't really like to say anything or do anything. Like, I kind of keep to myself pretty much. Like, I don't like to brag too much or be like, hey, I'm gonna win this, I'm gonna do that, because like I said earlier, like nothing is ever guaranteed. Like you could have the most awesome prep, like perfect. You don't feel any aches, any pains, but like literally, like that day before you compete, or like the week before, like you could get food poisoning or something, and that could just derail
Yeah.
everything. So it's like I try to kind of live in the moment. So it's like I guess if I had to say anything, it's just like stay in the moment. Like don't focus too much on what anybody else is doing, and just kind of try to analyze your internal circumstances and your external circumstances, and kind of like prioritize what you can control, and depending what your goals are and how serious you are about it, like just kind of decide what you can change, what you can modify, to kind of do what you got to do and get the job done.
Yeah. I've got some pretty big goals. I'm not as far ahead as you are, but yeah, I'd like to get to the top of the world at some point, and it's been hard for me to step back and realize that it's gonna be an 8 or 10 year process.
Yeah,
Like it's not gonna come soon.
the best in the world takes you about 10 years to become experienced at something or become really good at something.
Yeah, and I mean, and I'll add on top of that, man. I've actually had a conversation or a discussion with my brother the other day, where we kind of got into it because I said something. I told him that my training was more important than his, in my opinion, and he took offense to that because I was under the misunderstanding that on his totem pole, his training was like second or third instead of first. And then we kind of started talking about like how long, I told him, and then I was telling him, okay, I kind of lost my train of thought, but I was trying to explain to him that the reason why I have that mentality is because like I have acknowledged how strong Ray really is, man. Like nobody, I feel like he's really underrated nowadays because people want to talk about the 74s, they want to talk about the 83s,
Hmm.
all these smaller lifters. But if you really think about it, Ray has had the biggest total as a tested natural lifter. And it's like, when you put that into perspective, man, there's no guarantee I'll ever beat that, man. And I was telling my brother that the reason why I have to be so selfish with my training and how I operate is because I have acknowledged the greatness of Ray Williams. And I have also come to the conclusion that there is a possibility that I do not have the potential to reach that or surpass it. But me being who I am, man, like what I am doing, what I am trying to accomplish, it's out on a whim. It's out of hope, out of an aspiration, and like I've kind of had to acknowledge, like, and I've made this, like, I acknowledged this a while ago, where it was like, this is gonna take time. Like I have to put into account, like, what if life happens? Like what if I find a girl one day and like we get married and like there's things that are gonna pop up eventually that I'm gonna have to take time away, and that could potentially slow down my goals or take a break or something like that. So it's just you kind of have to, like, once you look at a goal, you have to acknowledge the reality of it. Like, how realistic is it of you reaching that? And then once you acknowledge the possibility that you never do, but you still want to do it, that's kind of when you start to walk out and really do more than what you're capable of. You
Yeah.
know,
Like
that's when you.
like I got hurt this summer, and it was kind of hard for me because I started to doubt myself. I was like, am I really made to be at the top level of powerlifting, or should I just go ahead and quit now? But I stuck through with it, and I'm gonna go till I literally can't anymore.
And I mean, I think you shouldn't, man. And like I was telling my gym manager, she's starting to get into powerlifting, and like she doubts herself a lot. And she was trying to ask me like, how do you do that? Like, how are you so confident? Like, how are you so sure you're gonna get this lift? And like my response to that was like, the doubt doesn't disappear. That voice doesn't get any smaller. You just get bigger.
I
And it's
like
like,
that.
Yeah, that's
I
awesome.
like that.
yeah, and like the bigger you get, the more you learn, the more you step out into that unknown, that uncomfortable region. Like that's when you start to see like this growth, that you're at that point, man. When you start growing more than you thought you were capable of, that's kind of when you start to believe in yourself. And it's like that to me, man, is like my belief in myself is that's what drives me. Like I believe that one day I'm gonna accomplish what I set out in front of me, and then but at the same time I have to be realistic and be like, what, like there's a chance I might not, or
Right.
that could just be the doubt. But at the end of the day, it's like, am I gonna let the potential reality of never accomplishing something from trying it? So that's kind of some food for thought. I kind of that's I'm I like my ninth grade teacher. She always used to refer to me as a philosopher, but it's like to me, man, when I look at lifting, like that's just the physical part of it. Like there's
Hmm.
so much more to how much you're going to progress, And okay, I'm glad that we kind of stumbled upon this because another philosophy that I believe in, it's like you see all these miraculous recoveries from like nerve people who have suffered nervous damage and they're supposed to be paralyzed, or people who have strokes and they can't move or they can't walk, and doctors are so quick to be like they're never going to walk again, or there's like studies shown that they're going to be paralyzed for the rest of their life. But somehow through like a miracle and like sheer human will, they overcome those obstacles. Like, how do people retrain their body to do something that it's not supposed to anymore? Like how do they reteach their nervous system? How do they reteach their muscles? And I adopted that and I applied it to my training. And it's like what if I'm really not designed to squat more than an X amount of weight, but because out of sheer will, out of sheer determination, out of sheer belief in myself, what if I'm actually surpassing my genetic potential? What if I'm doing more than what I'm supposed to simply because I think I can? And
Yeah.
I feel like that's a really big thing that people struggle with, is just that they don't think they can, And I feel like a good example of this would be Jonathan Keiko, the 93 kg national champion, another flex guy. And Joey talks about him a lot, how he literally, whenever he first started with Joey, he was unknown. Nobody knew who this guy was going to be. And you know how long it took him from beginning to where it took him to win nationals? It took him 5 years.
Wow.
5 years of like not being known, probably being thrown to the side, talked down upon. And like he never stopped, he never wavered. I'm pretty sure he's had his fair share of like situations where he kind of was faced with the dilemma, like, do I do this or do I quit powerlifting? And I mean, he stuck with it, and he won nationals, man. And I'm willing to say, like, on the pod, that he was gonna win worlds. His bench press was looking stupid insane, man. Like he was gonna do all these things, and it all started with him believing in himself or having someone else to believe in him. So like that's just kind of
Dude, you just gave me
part
chill
of like my
bumps.
messaging.
Yeah, man, that's a lot of motivation
It
right there.
really is. People listen to this. Take all that in. That's if you're thinking about doing something, you doubt yourself, just do it.
Yeah, listen
Just
to that
do it,
right
man.
there. Man, there's been a lot of good information on this episode, a lot of philosophy from Jesus. Man, we really appreciate having you on. Thank you so much for your time.
Oh no, man, this pleasure's mine.
I know people will absolutely love this episode. First guest, awesome.
Yeah, and guys, give him a follow. He's a super humble guy. I don't think you know how great this guy could be. And again, super humble. Thank you for doing this. It was an absolute pleasure.
Yeah, where can people find you on Instagram?
I get my underscore. I mean, my at, I guess, would be, or handle would be Megatronus_65. So like if you're like a Transformers fan, it's like Megatron and then US_65. Or you
Yeah.
could just look up my name, Jesus Olivares. That should pop up as well.
Yeah, everybody go give him a follow. Check out his training. He's been hitting some insane numbers, and can't wait to see what you do in the next meet.
Yes, sir. I appreciate it, man. Y'all have a good one.
Thank you for coming on. You too, man.